Welcome to the Bear Talk, your go-to Chicago Bears podcast where a father and son break down all things Bears from Soldier Field to Sunday showdowns. I'm your host, Dylan Weaver, and I'm joined here with my dad. How you doing, Dad?
Doing great, Dill. How you doing on this lovely week 2 of the preseason?
Yeah, not doing too bad. Just got off a long week of vacation. Glad to finally be back to record our third episode here on the Bear Talk. But very good week out of training camp that what we've been hearing. So super excited to, talk a little bit about that. And I definitely got some things I want to get off my chest with the national media and some of honestly the Chicago sports media as well that cover the Chicago Bears. But
Throw it at
I
me,
would
big dog. Throw it at me.
all right, let's just hop straight into it. Honestly, it just has a lot to do with this Caleb Williams. It seems like he's almost in a lose-lose situation every week. No matter how good he does, it doesn't really matter. We have a lot of people coming out of the national media who haven't even been to a single Bears training camp practice and are not only calling, Caleb Williams is struggling, they're also reporting out there that he's already failing under Ben Johnson's offense, and they haven't even played a snap together in the regular season. Um, I just think people need to pump the brakes. It's getting a little out of control, and the sad part is it's honestly coming from our own Chicago media as well. There's plenty of people out there, reporting all this stuff. It's like it's bad and it's not accurate reporting when you go check the Buffalo Bills beat reporters that are at the joint practice and they're saying Caleb Williams and Josh Allen both looked great, both had up and down days, both had shiny moments, both had stuff they could still work on. But when there's the opposing team coming into town and doing a joint practice and saying Caleb Williams is looking good, but then you have the Chicago media on the other side saying a whole different story. It's like, okay, something's not adding up here. Um, Even on top of that, the one that's really throwing me off is you go check out some of these beat reporters in Chicago that get to go to all the practices behind the scenes. And some of them, they're putting in their key takeaways. Rome Odunze is having an amazing day. And Luther Burden's also having a great day. Okay, so the receivers Caleb's throwing to is having a good day, but Caleb's not. Like, it just doesn't make sense. And I'm getting to a point where I'm just starting to realize like Caleb's in a lose-lose situation. And the national media is one thing to, be out there, saying stuff. It's their job to cover every team. And yes, they can't be at all the practices. That's fine. But the Chicago media, you would think like it's okay to be an honest reporter. When Caleb has a bad day, it's okay to report that. When he's having a good day, though, let's call it what it is. Um,
Well, let's think about it though, right? There's an old saying in the world. It's called winning cures all. And since 1985, the Bears haven't won a Super Bowl. So if Caleb wants to get respected by the local media as well as the national media, and I think you're talking about CC from this week in the early morning show, he was really laying it on Caleb. But he's got to win, right? So whether it's a preseason game or we wait to week 1, Monday night against the Vikings, if he wins, and when I say he wins, it's not a defensive win, and we're not hoping that the kicker can make a 57-yard field goal to win the game. We're talking a decisive win where the QB is throwing 3 dots down the field, good completion percentage, good accuracy, and the receivers are looking good, and gets a very decisive victory. I think he does that, and guess what? It starts whispering, then it goes away. Then we go to week 2. Then we see what happens. But I think we're getting ahead of ourselves. I understand your frustration. I've been a Bears fan since forever, and I get frustrated because on paper, we should have been to the Super Bowl like at least 6 other times with this team over the years since 1985. And we only got there once, and with a kickoff return for a touchdown with old Devin Hester, and the defensive play that we had with that defense back then, should have won at least another Super Bowl then, but we're not. So I say Caleb, produce, win, and the media gets easy on him.
Yeah, no, I mean, I definitely 100% agree. Like, obviously, winning can take that away, but my whole point with it too is just it's like I'm saying, like these national media members that haven't even been to a training camp practice are out here making all these reports. about Caleb, but they haven't even been to a practice. How are you going to report something so negative when you haven't even seen it for yourself? That's the thing that's kind of getting dragged for me. And then, kind of like I said, I know you probably want to talk about some of the opinions after seeing how many starting quarterbacks played last week in that first preseason, but Caleb didn't. I know you got some things you want to say about that, but before we get into that, I kind of just wanted to wrap it up on the Caleb Williams side, where I just think he's in a lose-lose scenario, because even the days when he does good, like you said, it is silent. They don't want to report any of it, but when it goes to the other side of it, of him playing bad, it's headlines everywhere. And you just don't see that. And it's one thing if it happens to all quarterbacks, but it's like Caleb is like their target, and they're like, and I get it. Our fans are outrageous, and we interact to everything, kind of how I'm talking right now. But it's like it's not the same treatment. Like, for example, JJ McCarthy isn't playing this week. You haven't heard one headline out there, oh my God, it's so worrisome. JJ McCarthy, who's never played an NFL snap yet, isn't playing this week in the preseason. That's not a good sign. Like,
Why is
it's
that though?
um it's probably due the same reason Caleb didn't play last week. They probably had a joint practice this week where JJ got a lot of reps.
No, I'm talking about JJ doesn't catch the heat. The reason Caleb catches the heat last year, number one overall draft pick, right? USC, Mr. Heisman himself. When we were drafting him, everyone said, "Oh my God, he's what was the comparable they used to him?"
Well, I just said they called him a generational talent, stuff
Oh
like
my
that.
god, and they called him a generational talent, and he wasn't generational last year. Did he have a great season last year for a rookie QB underneath the Chicago regime? Absolutely, and let's be honest, that was a dumpster fire last year. It was even a dumpster fire, the first year Eberflus was a coach there and what they did. And I was even thinking about this year in training camp, to put a little positive on this, the defensive coordinator hasn't been, mysteriously fired or let go in the middle of the night before the season started. If you remember back to Eberflus and his first team, he assembled and put together, and there was all the controversy about what happened to the defensive coordinator. But beyond that, a lot of this is on Caleb, right? He wants to walk the talk and, wear his Hollywood sunglasses as he did last weekend on the sidelines of the first preseason game, which I know you have an opinion on. But I think if you haven't won yet, don't look the part. But winning solves all. Let him win. Let
Yeah.
him not have any false starts. Let him read the defense. Let him be the generational talent that he is. And I think the local and national media will be singing a different tune as we go into the season.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. I do definitely think once the winning starts, it will flip the narrative. But that's the thing; those people don't get to jump on the bandwagon then when he's doing good and get all those positive reporting out, because you guys, we're out there reporting stuff so negatively without seeing a single snap yourself with your own eyes. You're taking, other people's opinions of what they saw and running, with the negative stuff and not the positive stuff that comes with it. So I'm just super excited. I will say, since all the starters are playing this week, and Case Keenum is also hurt and will not be playing this week. So I'm sure Caleb in that first team offense, and same with our defense. I'm expecting them probably to play at least a quarter in there and see how it goes. Especially too, we can kind of jump in it just this week of training camp. Um, with last week on Sunday with the Dolphins, Ben Johnson had the players in the game that didn't play about 20 snaps or more. They actually came in for a Monday practice the following morning and did a practice with just those people. I think it was about 37 people that were there. And by the reports, and this is what I'm talking about, the reporting. This reporting, it's sloppy, balls dropped, false starts, not accurate throws, a really rough day after Ben Johnson, gave them that reward of not playing in the game because they did a lot in that joint practice with the Dolphins on that Friday. So Monday, they had a pretty heavy practice with just the people, like I said, that didn't take about 20 snaps, and it was very ugly. And then from there, Tuesday, had a rest day, which after that practice didn't sound like they needed a rest day. Kind of seemed like they needed, let's get back in here and, do this the right way. But the rest day seemed to pay off, because Wednesday, Thursday, it seemed like the team was firing on all cylinders by the reports. I think one of the days too, they were reporting out there, they consider the drop balls like catchable balls. They added into that completion percentage for Caleb that the team's been tracking in the training camp of that 70% threshold. I think one of the days he was 16 for 18 out there, couple of touchdowns. And then on Thursday, he had another day where he was over that threshold. And then same thing, they had the joint practice on Friday with the Buffalo Bills, who, by the way, have been Super Bowl contenders, the past couple of years. And on top of that, Josh Allen, the reigning league MVP. So they came into town, another good test for the Bears, to get their feet under them. And it sounds like the Bears held their own. The reports out of it were, especially in at the first half, it sounded like the Bears offense was clicking on all cylinders. There was a couple of Roma Dunze touchdowns in there, Olamide Zaccheaus touchdowns in there. Caleb was getting the ball out quick, making fast decisions, reading the defense. And same thing with the defense, how they picked off Tua 3 times last week. It kind of tumbled right back over into this week. They picked off Josh Allen 3 times, couple times in 7-on-7, and then I believe one time in the red zone period on 11-on-11 full team. So it was very good to hear. Those are some reports you love to hear. Now I'm just curious too, coming in to today on Sunday, I want to see them do that same thing, hoping that the Buffalo Bills put their first team out there. Honestly, don't know where that's trending yet, but I wouldn't be surprised if they weren't playing just because of how high caliber of a team they are. But I would love to see their first team out there. And if not, even if it's a second team, let's go out there and look polished. This is the first time where our starters are going to be on national television. And same thing, it's an 8 o'clock game like it's going to be in a couple of weeks. And everyone's going to be watching, especially with the headlines that the national media has been putting out about Caleb. So there's going to be a lot of eyes on them, and I want them to go out there, excel. And like I said, I don't need the happy reporting. I just need them to be quiet. Let's just get this thing going. I just want to see positive things. I know bad stuff probably will come out of it, but let's limit that and let's make sure, we get in there, do our job and make it look clean.
I just want to see the first team play a half of football. I don't care if they play at all in the third game, which we know they typically don't play in the third preseason game. That's for the coaches to identify any of the potential people who are going to make the 53-man roster. Let me see a half. Let me see, no false starts. Let me don't see any errant balls. And let me see the first team on both sides of the ball execute at a very high level. And like I said earlier, I think that chatter quiets down a little bit. As far as the bandwagon, plenty of room on the bus once this thing gets rolling, right? I want as many fans as possible cheering on
No,
Chicago.
I'm
It's
good
been
off
since
of that.
85, 85. Come
I'm
on
good.
now.
I'm good off that. We don't need no fake fans jumping on board once we start getting hot. I mean, even by some of our friends and family, we get trolled all the time, especially in our fantasy, football group chats about the Bears and how bad they are. So when they start this thing and this thing gets rolling, there ain't nobody. The caboose ain't here to pick anybody up. We're full steam ahead. But no, I'm super excited. I do agree. It would be cool to see them play a half. Realistically, though, I think they will probably play at least a quarter. Get in there, which a quarter should be good and give them probably about, depending on how good the defense does or how fast our offense, is out there excelling. It should be about 2 to 3 drives, which I think is pretty good. As long as those are, extended drives, that should be a good, 15 to 25 plays in there of a good sample that we can see and pick apart from. And speaking about the starters playing, this week in training camp, there was a huge story. Our second round pick, Ozzy Trapillo, got moved over to the right tackle side. It officially kind of looks like he's kind of out of that conversation now for being a starting left tackle, which is probably the biggest red flag we have right now going into the official season. So this game is going to be a huge, huge week for not only Braxton Jones, who seems like this job is slowly but surely slipping away from him, but now Theo Benedict, from the Hard Knocks last year, the Canadian Eagle Speedo, man, he's right up there in contention. And by the reporting too, in that joint practice, Theo Benedict got more first team reps. And not only did he get more reps, it sounds like he looked a lot better than him. There was a lot of reports when Braxton Jones did come in, either false starts or getting blown right by too fast that would translate into a sack into the game. So I like I said, it's a little weird to me how they kind of moved Ozzy Trapillo back over to that right side, which it is. Yes, he did play right tackle his whole college career, and they thought he'd probably be able to play left tackle. I am just a little curious. Maybe they're gave him some reps this week at the right tackle, so he has rooms for both sides. Just so let's say for example, Darnell Wright does get to a point, knock on wood, but let's say he has an injury and he goes down, the coaches would be setting him up for failure if they didn't give him any right tackle reps, in training camp going into the season. And then let's say Darnell does go down the season and he's like, okay, Trapillo, you're in at right tackle. Sorry, we forgot to give you reps. So I wonder if it's one of those where they're just giving him some of those reps this week, because it's almost weird that it seems like right now he got completely thrown out of the conversation. And I
Yeah,
do go ahead.
it's a little weird for me though, because as much praise as we give, Declan and Johnson, the O line coach that they brought in with Brashear, why are we still messing with the line? We've always said year after year after year the line's the problem, and we bring in Dahlman and Jackson and Cooney, and here we are. We're still playing around. Figure it out. I mean, we're late in the game. You had OTAs, you had training camp, you had all these different opportunities to evaluate your starting line, and here we are, week 2 of preseason, and we don't have it figured out. That concerns me. Out of all the praise I give the coaching staff right now, that's the one thing that concerns me. Now, again, they know more than I do about football in their little pinky, um, but that is concerning.
No, I agree. It's definitely the biggest red flag as far as the team goes. And kind of like you said, the coaching staff has done nothing but terrific things than we're used to over here in Chicago. But this is one where it's like, okay, let's figure it out. I believe even Ben Johnson said in his press conference before the joint practice on Friday, he did say, he's like, today we're looking for some clarity, like with kind of like a little laughing but serious moment, like just like us fans are looking for some clarity, that coaching staff's looking for it. And I think, Ben Johnson's exact words were, "We're waiting for someone to prove it that they deserve it." But they haven't seen that yet. They've seen good moments from different amount of people, but they've also seen too many bad moments where it hasn't been that clear and decisive for them to make that decision. And he kind of reiterated it a lot, Ben Johnson, that is, and said, that they'll go as long as they need to get to figure out who that person is supposed to be, whether that goes all the way to the end of training camp into week 1, which that's where that concerning part does come in, because kind of like we talked about last week with Joe Tooney, he said he wants that left tackle to be solidified so that way they can build that continuity. And when you have a future Hall of Famer telling you and telling the media, hey, I need to know who's going to be playing next to me to start building that chemistry, that's kind of concerning, that a Hall of Famer is out there telling the coaches, hey, let's figure this out, but it's still not getting figured out. And I understand both sides of it. They're wanting to make sure they get the right guy in there, then saying, hey, this is going to be our starter, and then it just completely goes backwards. But I do agree, we need to figure it out, because the rest of the O line is pretty well set. That left tackle spot is just the one that's kind of creeping back in every single day. We just hear a new guy in there, or today this guy did good, this guy did bad. A lot of back and forth and not a lot of consistency. So I'm hoping, with this game today against the Bills, we get a little bit of clarity on that. I'm sure they'll be dissecting that film pretty bigly, but I did watch, from the NFL Network, Brian Baldinger. He did a good breakdown of Theo Benedict's film from last week, obviously due to the part of him going to be playing a lot more first team snaps this week. He was on the right side, but I mean, he did look good in that breakdown. He showed a couple of his highlights from that game. It was like 7 or 8 plays. And I mean, the guy's anchoring, he's setting his feet, not getting over aggressive, and just keeping the guy at bay right in front of him. And how cool of a story would it be from, a guy that's undrafted, free agent out of Canada, British Columbia College, I believe. It would be a
The other
crazy,
BC.
yeah, it would be a crazy story for a guy like that, especially at left tackle, you never hear undrafted free agents being on a starting first team left tackle spot. That would be an insane story. And I kind of liked, Theo Benedict from the Hard Knocks last year with that Canadian Eagle moment. It kind of gave a little bit of laughter, and everything
Was that a
doesn't have
better
to.
performance than Colston's?
I don't know. Colston's was pretty cool. I watched that earlier this week on the football drive, the 1920 football drive, that episode they release every weekend. I mean, he was grooving in there. He had the team vibing. I mean, I'll tell you what, it was definitely better than Caleb and Rome's karaoke last year, because Caleb at one point, I'm pretty sure, forgot the words and just started humming. Colston Loveland was out there dancing. He was into it. It was super cool to see, but it would definitely be cool to see, an underdog story, kind of come way for Theo Benedict. So I'm excited definitely to see, that competition. That's definitely what I'm going to be honed in, is watching that left tackle and just making sure, they're out there protecting Caleb, because that's his blind side. And that's probably the most important position on the O-line, is that person protecting his blind side. He can't see those people coming. And, that's where, fumbles can happen because you're unexpectedly getting hit. And not only that, that's where you can get those neck injuries, stuff like that, where you're just getting speared right in your back and you have no clue it's coming. So definitely needs to get figured out.
68
But
sacks.
yeah, no, for sure. And I think they're still going to drop from last year, but I still expect it's going to be pretty, not, I don't think it's going to be over the 50s, but I think it's going to be somewhere in that 40 range. As playmaker, as much of a playmaker as Caleb is, there's going to be times where he gets away and, does his magic that we've seen him do, but there's also going to be times where he gets caught. And that's kind of what Ben Johnson's trying to get out of him. He's trying to find that, happy medium where he's still letting Caleb be his playmaking self when he needs to be out of the pocket. But at the same time, he's also trying to get him in that system where, okay, drop back, feet set, throw the ball. So I'm definitely excited to see Caleb as well. What are you looking forward to and watching in the preseason game?
I'm looking forward to him not wearing those Hollywood glasses on the sideline this weekend. Maybe after he goes through, 2 or 3 good series of some good accuracy and completions, hopefully a touchdown or two through the air. But I tell you what, nothing burns me more than I was watching that game last week. I was already upset that the starters weren't playing, and then I had to see him on the sidelines. I just call them Hollywood glasses. I don't know why. It just irked me the whole time I thought about it. I was watching it. I'm curious from the people who watch the podcast. Put in the comments. What was your thoughts on it? Or did you even pick it up when they showed him on the sidelines? If that bothered you or not, I'm kind of curious your thoughts on it. But I just know for me, I seen that and I immediately fired off a text to Dill about what's with the Hollywood glasses on. He did point out some others were wearing the same glasses on the sidelines, but
I was
I
a
just,
Yeah,
I yeah,
I was definitely about to say, I was like, DJ Moore and Roma Dunte were kind of right in that clique. If I'm not mistaken, I'm pretty sure they were all wearing the same glasses. And, hopefully that's their little clique thing they got going on, because they need that chemistry. So it didn't mind me too much, especially too. It did look like it was a sunny day over there. So I didn't mind seeing it. I get it, but the QBs, they're all out there. The Joe Burrow, they're all out there swagging it out when they're on the sidelines, walking into game days. They
Joe
got
Burrow
all
played the first preseason game though. He can do that.
okay.
Hey,
Did he
even
wait? Hold on. Is he gonna play this week though? I
no,
mean,
no, he played the
exactly.
first one
So
though. But even when Tua concussion to Tua to Tua Tua is out there playing in the game. Um, if you're trying to protect anyone, you're probably trying to protect, concussion prone Tua. But yet he's out there slinging the rock on us.
yeah, well,
Um,
there's reasons behind that too. Exactly what I said. He had a rough day against our defense in that joint practice, and Mike McDaniel said, "Yeah, you're gonna go play. You didn't look good enough." And I think it was a little bit from Tua too, if I'm not mistaken. Tua also said the same thing. Like, he told Mike McDaniel, "Hey, I want to play." And before we go full on attack about Caleb not playing, Caleb did state in his press conference earlier in the week he wanted to play. He wanted to play in the game, and it was Ben Johnson's decision. We talked about it enough last week with them getting more reps in that joint practice than they did in the game. So, let's move past it. Let's go this week. Let's watch Caleb go down the field, 10 for 10, 120 yards, a touchdown or two. And guess what? We can forget about it. Like you said, winning erases it. So we can forget about last week. And Ben Johnson looks like the genius he is. And, they put a good product out there. But I know everyone's so gung-ho on Caleb and watching this offense, but I'm really excited to watch this defense too. We have not seen this first team defense play in a game yet. And all the reports in training camp is guys are just flying blitzes. I'm just excited to see some exotic blitzing that we have not been used to in a while. We're over here. We've been used to the Tampa 2, cover 2, drop back, don't give up the big play. Dennis Allen says, yeah, screw that. I'm bringing the house. And guess what? Our guys are going to be sticky in coverage. Even if you do get the ball off in time, it better be a good throw because our guys are going to be locked hip with your receivers. So I'm excited to see this defense. I will warn everyone, we're probably are going to see more bigger plays given up because we are in that man and we're sending a lot of blitzing. So it leaves a lot more people vulnerable on island. So there's definitely going to be bigger plays that happen. But we're also going to see a lot more quarterbacks in the ground that we have not been used to in a while because, our whole philosophy the past 10, 15 years has been, yeah, we'll just send 4 guys and none of them can win a one-on-one matchup. So there's no point of, even getting happy because sacks rarely happen around here.
Speaking
So
of speaking of, dropping the ball a little bit, I dropped the ball a little bit last week on our players to watch in the game. What about Austin Booker? Talk
yeah.
about a performance out of that DN spot that, we didn't even have him on our radar to watch. We're excited about so many other players last week that we talked about. But speaking of your exotic blitzes and getting to the quarterback with 3 sacks last week, what was your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I did. I kind of mentioned to you this earlier in the week when we were talking when the game was on. And I love Austin Booker. One thing that sticks out for me when watching him, especially even last year when he was a rookie, is his speed. If the guy doesn't quit on a play, he's always, even if the football's on the other side of the field, you see, him running down the field to go make tackles. This guy isn't a D lineman that just, oh, I didn't win my one-on-one rush. The play's going the other way. I'll just jog over there. No, this guy is full head of steams. You can see it on tape easily. The number one thing that stands out is his effort. The guy is continuously hustling to the ball. He has that mentality in his head that anything can happen. You never know. He could chase a play down from behind, knock the football out. He has that mentality. But I will say, like I did warn you earlier in the week, he kind of had this same superstar performance last preseason. And then by the time the season got here, he just his effort was still there on display, but he wasn't having the sacks that he was having in preseason. So I'm definitely excited, but with Dennis Allen's defense that we're talking about, the more exotic blitzes, that's going to free up a lot more of him being one-on-one instead of getting double teamed. And maybe it will unlock him. And, we are needing someone opposite side of Montez Sweat. It does finally seem like Dio Adengbo, who we signed in the offseason, is finally starting to make a little bit of an impact. We're hearing in these joint practices, I think there was a couple in the Bills where he had a couple of sacks breaking through. So that's good to hear. But we definitely need someone opposing side of Montez Sweat to make a presence over there. And whether that's, one guy or a rotation of guys, keep rotating in and out to get pressure. We definitely need someone, to pair with Montez Sweat who can go out there and make plays. But like I said, I'm just super excited to see this defense because Jalen Johnson and Kyler Gordon both have been out now for, I think Kyler's going on a week, but Jalen Johnson's been out since the start of training camp with that hamstring issue. But the defense has still been making plays all over the field without probably arguably 2 of our 3 best players on our defense. So, I mean, I'm super excited to watch this defense, see the blitzes. I want to see some interceptions too. We heard, he picked off Josh Allen 3 times in the joint practice. Let's see some of it live. Even if, let's just say, our old fellows here, Mitch Trubisky is the one throwing the ball. Let's see some picks. I want to see some aggressive defense. But super excited to watch the defense.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's Bears, right? Monsters of the Midway. They always put together a pretty solid defense. And we got some players, right? I mean, there's definitely some players on that defense that will be fun to watch, especially with all the starters playing, right? Let's see what they can do. See what they put together. We got the the good play calling from Dennis, and we'll see exactly what that looks like. And hopefully we can, with the Bills. No, granted they're going to be running a vanilla offense anyways. They're not going to show anything crazy, but it will be kind of nice to see how they can execute against a high caliber offense such as the Bills, because as we know, they've been players over the last few years, never making it to the big dance, but nonetheless, Josh Allen and that offense is pretty high powered and pretty skilled. Even when you think when they traded away some players, it was going to be an off year for them last year. They were able to put together a really nice season. So I'm excited to see it. I mean, it's football. I'm excited to watch any football. I mean, high school football just started up, and I'm watching that on TV because it's just football. Who doesn't love football?
Yeah, no, I'm definitely excited. And one other player I want to mention before we kind of move on from the defense that I'm really excited to see is Jaquan Brisker. Um, After last year, that hard concussion he took, which he's already had a couple of them in the NFL, and then he's had several back in college. But there's not a better guy to root for than Jaquan Brisker. This guy brings the energy to our defense. He's always talking. He's always doing his little thing on his celebration with his fingers and no, no, no. I'm super excited to see Jaquan out there. The guy is an electric player. He plays safety like he's a middle linebacker. He comes down, hence the concussions, but he comes down and he's gonna tear your head off. This guy hits like a truck. He's very high energetic, and I'm Kevin Byard's even mentioned it, and several players on our defense. When he wasn't there last year, the energy and the vibes kind of got down because he's the guy that brings that out there and gets everyone going. And especially on defense, you need someone like that to get everyone hyped up and going because you're about to go out there and go hit some people. Like on offense, I think it's a lot more better to be cool, calm, and collected and go execute. But on the defense, no, you need some psychos out there that are getting everyone else in that mindset of let's go kill somebody. And he brings that energy. So I'm praying for a healthy season for Jaquan this year. Let's stay all the way healthy because he is in a contract year. And I'm going to be honest, if he proves he can be healthy, I'm down to re-sign this guy. This guy is an electric. Like I said, his hitting, he just comes down and takes people's heads off. I mean, obviously, we might need to work on the tackling a little bit, but just a proper way because he comes down leading with that head a lot. But it was very cool. I remember a bunch of the media talked to him earlier in training camp about his concussions and how he's going to play. And he straight up just said, I'm not going to change anything. He's like, I'm going to go out there and play exactly how I am. I mean, the guy is fearless. The guy's had a dozen concussions and he's still out there. I don't care. I'm going to go out there and hit you as hard as I can. How can you not love a player like that?
I mean, I love them, but you said it yourself. The concussions had me nervous. Just from a person, right? I mean, you think about the health and the longevity of an individual beyond the game. And granted, they started playing this game at a very young age. They live for it. It has provided an amazing life for them, and it's their livelihood. And for anyone to ask them to give it up is definitely not going to happen. But you know, I talked about Tua just a few moments ago, and the concussions he has, and you wonder, you wonder when's enough is enough, and that's my concern for Brisker. He's a phenomenal player. He probably needs to, and you said it. He's taking heads off, right? Maybe he needs to take off at the waist or something, not at the head, so he can avoid those head injuries to himself, so he can avoid those concussions. Because he's much more valuable to us when he's playing versus when he's not. As we know, last year he was out a long, long time, and we were kind of questioning what was going to happen this year with him coming back. And it'll be exciting to see. Maybe you should wear a guardian cap. I know they look silly, but if it prolongs your playing time and avoids you concussion time and symptoms down the road, well beyond the years of playing football, maybe that's a route you go just to
Yeah.
play it safe.
I think Jaquan Brisker's made it clear already he ain't wearing that Guardian cap. And like you said, it obviously goes past the game of football, and they everyone hopefully has a long life to live. But when you're taking head injuries like that, that's when it does get into the part where you probably do need to have a little bit more of a serious conversation. But by the sounds of Jaquan Brisker, he talks just the way he plays. He ain't scared of anything. He wants to go out there and play the game he loves. And I mean, how can you blame it? You get one chance at life on this spinning rock that we live on, and the man just is out there doing what he loves, that he's been doing his whole life. And especially at that high of a level, I think it's a little bit different. If you're, know the NFL isn't a route for you, then it's a little bit more serious. But this guy's at the highest level there is. You think now that he's got there, he wants to, peel back. And especially too, like you talked about, the last year one was really unfortunate because it was against the Carolina Panthers against Tommy Tremble, and he actually was going to tackle him right in the chest area, and Tommy Tremble is the one that actually lowered his head, and Jaquan Brisker showed how strong he is and knocked him out cold. Like the guy was literally limp on the field, and Jaquan Brisker got up and was fine, but he said on that flight home is when he started feeling a little off. It hit him a little bit later, but it's unfortunate. It's the game of football. The way these guys are flying around the field, these type of stuff are going to happen. But I'm hoping for a healthy season out of Jaquan, because when this guy's healthy, he is a huge part of our defense. And like I said, it goes past more the hard hitting and the play style. It goes to the energy he brings to this defense. And, in tight games, you need a guy like that that's getting everyone amped up and ready to go. So definitely excited.
Yeah. What about JJ? What are we hearing on him?
What do you mean, JJ McCarthy?
No, no, no. Jalen Johnson.
Yeah, no, Ben Johnson spoke earlier this week. He did say everything's right on track with him. The one that they're saying is a little bit more concerning now, where it's on a week to week basis, is Kyler Gordon. But Jalen Johnson, they said they think he's right on track, like they said a couple weeks ago. Or actually, I think it's been about a month ago since the start of training camp when they said our plan is to have him ready for week one. And they say that plan is still right on track. I think Ben Johnson addressed that Thursday or Friday in one of the press conferences. But with Kyler Gordon, they're now saying it's more of a week to week, which Kyler Gordon, he is a great player, but he's also been on that side with those hammy issues where not that he misses severe time, but he does always miss a week or two in the season here and there. It happened last year at the start of the season too, which he's another player that I don't want to see hurt either, because when he's out there, he's a huge part of our run game. He comes downhill, and Dennis Allen's already talked. He's got him playing safety, nickel, cornerback all over this defense. And I think those different looks are going to confuse opposing offenses. So I'd like to see him out there, but I kind of feel he's going to be the same way. When week one's ready to go, he's going to be ready to go. I feel like, what we've heard from the players of that culture in there, and not only the players, but what the media is seeing with their own eyes and evaluating how different this is. I think all these players that, that can push through some of these injuries and be out there, they're going to be out there. It seems special. I'm not going to get too crazy and too ahead of myself and say Super Bowl, but it seems like this is going to be a really good season, and these players are going to do what they can to be out there and playing. So I think Jalen Johnson, like I said, I wouldn't worry too much about him. I feel like he's going to be ready, and he doesn't concern me. Yeah, he might need to shake off some rust in the first quarter, but this guy is one of the best cornerbacks in the NFL who gets underrated all the time. But he goes out there, he goes against Justin Jefferson. Justin Jefferson's going to make his plays. Jalen Johnson's going to make his plays. But Jordan Addison suspended, won't be there. We just got to worry about Aaron Jones and TJ Hawkinson, which I'm not too worried about. In that game, like I said, we kind of talked about it. We think it's already going to be a pretty easy first game, even though it's a division rival. But if now that Jordan Addison's officially suspended those first 3 games of the season, this should be, as long as we have Jalen Johnson out there healthy for week one and following Justin Jefferson around the field, I think, week one should be pretty good.
Yeah. We talked about offense. We've talked about defense. We talked a little bit about specialty. What's your thoughts on this new lineup for the kickoffs? The landing zone and the 20-yard box and the the opposing teams facing the other way, like they're turned around. To me, I don't see it. I just don't
I
see it.
well, it's a little bit of a controversy. Some people like it, some people don't like it. I like the part in the rule that they emphasis this year. Last year, since it was the first time the rule was in effect with a special kickoff, if you kicked it out of bounds or it was a touchback, the ball just came out to the 30-yard line, and that was just 5 more yards, you know, further than the previous with the normal kickoff. So most teams would just kick the ball out of bounds or out of the back of the end zone because they're like, oh, 5 more yards, okay, we're fine if that doesn't give us a chance, you know to let these people return the ball for a touchdown. But now that ball, whether you kick it out of the back of the end zone with a touchback, now that ball is coming out to the 35-yard line, and you're probably thinking in your head, oh, 5 more yards. Well, if you think about it, a 15-yard passing play, you're on the other team's side now, and another 10 to 15 more yards. Now you're in field goal range. So you've already been seeing in preseason. A lot of these kickers now are kicking it purposely in that landing zone because if you don't, teams are starting at the 35. And I think it's a very, as a Bears, we got a legend over here that used to return kicks and punt returns all the time in the name of Devin Hester, who actually just got inducted into the Hall of Fame last year. But we need the kickoffs back in the game. The kickoffs are usually the part now where we're like, oh yeah, we're gonna go grab another drink or we're gonna go to the bathroom. That part of the game has been gone for like five plus years now, where it's just not even entertaining. Yeah, you hear a couple throughout the season that hey, kickoff return by blah blah blah, but nowadays you don't hear it like we did back then. Even with Devin Hester being as good as he is, there were still other teams, and every week there'd always be a kickoff return, and it's an electric part of the game. It's that third phase of the game in special teams where players are out there, and it could be game changing plays. We've seen plenty of them by Devin Hester. One that sticks out with me is that fourth quarter against the Arizona Cardinals a while back. I think there was like a minute 20 on the clock. They punt to him. He takes it to the crib for the touchdown. And next thing you know, the Bears win the game by 1 point because of that. So I love seeing this new rule getting put into place, and especially now with them enforcing more yardage if you're going to just kick it out of the back of the end zone. It needs to be a phase in the game. And as far as you're talking about with the players, like you were saying, it's a little weird how the players are kind of turned away from the kicker. It's more, that part of it is more so that safety part where as the time progresses, all these players are getting faster, bigger, and with the kickoffs, it's where they're seeing a lot of those injuries happen because, like with the old rule, they're running 50 yards full speed down the field and then just clashing heads like they're Titans back in the day. And the runner tries to make the play, but they made those in closer. I'm pretty sure just due to player safety, stuff like that. But I also think it's pretty cool because they all line up like 5 yards apart, but they still have that lane responsibility that you would in the normal kickoff, where you got to stay in your lane or a hole's going to open up. So I like it. I think it isn't a bad idea. I did think personally last year we were going to see a lot more kickoffs just because the players are not getting that full head of speed, where the returner's still catching the ball deep and getting that 15 to 20 yards to run before the players can touch them. So I did think we would see a lot more kickoff returns last year, but that also was probably due to the fact, like I said, most teams were just kicking the ball out of the back of the end zone and saying, okay, you can come out to the 30-yard line. We don't care. But now, like I said, that 35-yard line, that's like a first down away, and you're in the other team's territory now. So you might as well kick it to them because they might not make it to the 30-yard line. Then you got 20, 25 yards to play with before they're in your territory. So I'm definitely interested to see some of the new kickoff things in the special teams, but so far it's still kind of been the same thing. Nothing really electric. I mean, Trayvon Henderson did have that one last week with the Patriots. Opening kickoff, took it to the crib, 100-something yards. So that was cool to see, and I hope we see more of them.
Yeah, absolutely. You're right. It brings back in that third phase of the game because for far too long we were used to, hey, here comes a kickoff. It's something magic's gonna happen. Don't go anywhere. And then it went to kind of that, I got a little extra time to take a break and go make myself a sandwich, maybe get a drink, use the bathroom. So hopefully we do see more of that this year, and that'll change the game too. It gives you an extra opportunity to really go after it, and think about who you got back there catching the ball and returning it. So definitely excited to see it as well. I just think the people facing the other way is a little corny in my opinion. If when I watch it, the first time I saw it this year, I was like, "What is going on?" and had to do a little bit more research on it. So
Yeah,
all
no,
right, well,
well, and real quick before we jump onto it too, there's one rule too that they added into that this year that actually brings up a pretty good, discussion point that I'm sure we'll both agree with it that it's pretty dumb. But last year, you weren't allowed to do an onside kick unless you were down in the game, no matter what. So you could have been, up maybe, the one that comes to mind is the Sean Payton and the Patriots in the Super Bowl. Um, they were up at halftime, and right at the opening kickoff of the half, they just kicked an onside kick and completely, it was a surprise. They did change it this year now where you can onside, but you still gotta wait till the fourth quarter and you have to be losing, which I still don't agree with the rule. You should be able to onside kick at any point in the game. Why does it matter the fourth quarter? It shouldn't matter, especially some of those games where, obviously most teams aren't going to onside kick in the first half. You're just not going to do it. It's too long, too much time left in the game. But there are times where, I mean, as Bears fans, we've even experienced it. It might be the start of the third quarter and we're down 20 points and we score a touchdown. We might want to onside kick that ball in the third quarter to get, a better chance at winning the game, but you simply can't until the fourth quarter. And the other crappy thing about that is, let's say the fourth quarter does start and you're losing, but the other team's offense has the ball. Well, they're going to run more time off the clock, and then you might not even get the chance to do, that onside kick. And same thing, kind of like you said, with the new rules of that player's facing off. Now, when you declare an onside kick, it goes back to the normal way they line up because it's an onside kick and there's no surprise element. So that is the one downside. And I'm glad you kind of brought that up, but it did make me think of that because the onside kick is another element of the game that, there's been so many crazy plays happened off an onside kick in game swing. I mean, we saw one last year against our division rivals, the Minnesota Vikings. We were down, I think it was 13 points with like a minute and 6 seconds left. Caleb throws a bomb touchdown. We score. We're down 6, kick an onside kick, get the ball, and then we take the game into overtime because of the onside kick. It's like there's so many different elements of the game that we were used to growing up, especially you growing up. But like nowadays, it just all the rules are changing, for player safety. And I get it, but at the same time, why do we have to make so many changes? Like it's a game we love and a lot of people grow up on, and the constant rule changing. And I get it, players evolve, like we said, they get faster, bigger, and certain rule changes are needed. But like even the roughing the passer one, it still gets me to this day. It's like, what do you want them to grab the quarterback and lay them on a soft pillow on the ground? Like we're playing tackle football here. Like let's let these guys get hit. They're it's fine. That's what they're used to. They sign up for this. They didn't sign up. These DNs didn't sign up to go all this way, make it to the NFL, and then next thing you know, they gotta let up before the quarterback hits the ground. It's like, come on.
I hear that. What was the next topic you wanted to talk about tonight?
Yeah, I think what a perfect topic we can do to close this off. I'm pretty excited about it. I don't know how
Uh-oh.
you feel about it, but Kevin Warren did mention last week that the stadium, it looks like it's going to be Arlington Heights. I know it's been a lot of back and forth, but George McCaskey even doubled down on it. It seems like Arlington Heights is where that stadium is going to be built. Um, and like I just said a couple minutes ago, that I'm super excited about this. Arlington Heights is a great place to have this stadium. Growing up in Illinois, in the McHenry County area, I love Chicago, don't get me wrong, but going back there now as an adult, just going around the city, all the traffic, the different things happening in the city, just all the craziness. I think a perfect place to build that would be Arlington Heights. I think it's the perfect place. It's a beautiful area. They got a really good downtown life of just bars. And I think it'd be cool just to build this stadium right in the middle of the suburbs where all the fans are. And then now they're not going to have to take hour-long train rides into the city to get to these games, then take a Uber from the train to the stadium. Like, I think it's going to be really cool to have the stadium in the middle of all these suburbs out there. And I'm just excited. I've been wanting this. I'm definitely excited to see this happen. And I know I don't really know your thoughts on it, but I get the whole Chicago. We are Chicago Bears, and it might kind of ruin that whole vibe to it. But I'm excited. A change is needed. It'll definitely be cool. Maybe a change of scenery finally changes things around for the Bears around here.
Yeah, one, I'm just excited for a new stadium, whether it's in Chicago or Arlington Heights. You mentioned cutting down on the hour-long train ride. For me, that's an opportunity because I like the hour ride train ride in because that just means the more uh, what's the word I want to use here? The more cost-effective beverages I can consume before I get to the stadium, and I have to fork out $20 for a frosty beverage. So I always enjoyed that part of the train ride. All the fans on, getting on at the same station, picking them up along the way as you make your journey downtown, and obviously with your thermos full of whatever concoction you made that morning. Typically starts with bloody, ends with Mary, which is always nice. But a new stadium nonetheless, right? I've been to my fair share of games over the years. I've been to some preseason games when it's 100 degrees and I turned up, red as a lobster after the game because I failed to put on sunscreen. I've been to the Packers Bears game, where it was ice out basically, and you were freezing to death. So I think, the renderings we're seeing of the stadium that they're producing and the talks about being enclosed in kind of a climate controlled environment. I get it. It's football. It's supposed to be tough and it's Chicago bear weather. Um, but when I'm paying $500 for a ticket, I want to be comfortable. I want to enjoy the whole experience. And I think what they're putting together, whether they do it downtown, which I like downtown, right? The skyline, the lake, that whole atmosphere, I think is phenomenal. But the renderings that they're doing, uh, I think will be really, really nice in that Arlington Heights area. Granted, I have fond memories of Arlington Park, with horse betting and horse racing and the 4th of July celebrations they used to put on there, which were some of the best 4th of July fireworks I've ever seen in my life, put to music. But now that they own that piece of land, they've torn it all down. That nostalgia is over with. So why not create some new memories and a new stadium in Arlington Heights? I think it'll be a good deal. And you're right on the commute. I mean, the commute down's always nice to have a long one, but the one back home, you always want that to be as short as possible so you can get home and rest up either for the evening game or if it's a Thursday night game, you don't want to get home at 1, 2 o'clock in the morning because you were downtown. So I'm excited. I mean, have you looked at the renderings yourself?
Yeah, I mean, I've seen a couple of the renderings. The one cool thing that I think is about the stadium is, Kevin Warren has talked about it. He's building a stadium that's going to be approved to hold the national championship games for basketball, football, stuff like that for big time concerts, shows, etc. This is other revenue that we can bring in, from a business side as well. Where right now, in Chicago, yeah, we can host some concerts there. But as far as, these big NCAA events, stuff like that along those lines, we can't do any of that. It's just too old of a stadium. And, I agree, like you said, I do understand the cold aspect of it. The weather, when it gets to those later games, it kind of, leans in the Bears' favor just because especially if it's a West Coast team coming out here, they're usually takes them a quarter or two to warm up and get used to that, freezing cold weather. But at the same time, I don't know the exact percentage, but I bet you it's over 50%. You know, most stadiums have domes now or retractable roofs where when the weather is bad, you know, it closes off. And I'm okay playing indoors because I think that's where you're going to get the best product out of both teams. You know, fair weather conditions, nothing can interrupt it. And it's the best against the best going out there and putting on displays where, you know, the weather comes in. Yes, it takes a skill to play in certain types of weathers, but at the same time, I'd rather just see, you know, the max potential of both teams going at each other in dry conditions. I think it makes the game more entertaining. Like, as fun as the snow games are, how many times back in the days did we just have to watch, you know, oh, who can run the ball better? Who can stop the run better? Like, I'm sorry. Running is cool and I love seeing good run plays, but at the same time, we're in a different era of football where these quarterbacks can sling this ball 50, 60 yards down the field, and that's the plays we're looking forward to seeing. And when you're in those type of games, you just really can't see plays like that, and it comes down more to of a strategic, you know, score first, then play heavy defense and just play conservative going forward. So, I'd rather just see a fair conditions game where both teams are going to be at their best and there's no weather conditions that can, you know, make their mark on the game, if you will. So I'm excited. The stadium looks unreal. It looks from another country. I mean, that's kind of how I've seen, you know, with the Rams stadium now and the Chargers, the one they shared on there, that one I see, and I'm just like, holy smokes, like this is so cool. Allegiant Stadium's another one. I know we've been to a couple, you know, SEC championship games at Mercedes-Benz. Like those indoor stadiums, I don't know what it is about them, but you also can be at the game. And like you said, whether it is hot or cold, you don't have to be, you know, during those cold games, putting on 100 layers just to stay warm. Or the hot games, you don't have to be sitting there burning up the whole game. You're at an environment that feels like your house, you know, room temperature, and you can, you know, have just as much fun without, you know, having to put on all these clothes, this, that, and the other, and preparing. You just show up to the game and go have a good time. So I
I wonder
definitely,
I wonder if your opinion will change, when the Bears are winning this year. Well, we won't use this year because the stadium's not up. But let's say, we get a few years into the Ben Johnson era. We put together a real nice offense and defense, and the new stadium's built. The hype's around it. It's great. We make it to the playoffs. We have home field advantage, and we get like the Bucks there, right? In the old days, you had the advantage. The Bucks were used to 70-degree weather in the wintertime. They'd come up. They'd usually, not win in those cold weather games. But now it's an equal playing field, so you kind of lose home field advantage a little bit.
yeah, but that's what I'm talking about. I'd rather it's still going to be a home field advantage because we know our fans are always going to show up and make that crowd work. You still have that home field advantage from that aspect where when we're on offense, the stadium's going to be quiet until the big play happens so they can hear what's going on. And then vice versa, when our opposing team offense is out there, our stadium is going to be roaring where you can't hear anything. So it still has that home aspect feel to it. And, and let's be honest, the Bears at Hallis Hall, they practice indoors when the weather gets cold. They have an indoor facility, and yes, they'll practice outside a couple times of the week to get prepared, but let's be for real. All these facilities are just getting next level with the millions and millions of dollars they're bringing in. They already practice indoors anyway. So I don't know how much of an advantage it really is. Like I said, it's a little bit in the Bears' favor because they are used to those cold winters. They go through them, they live in them. So they're used to that type of weather. But at the same time, it just brings out a really, I feel like, just not a good of a product, you know, when you're actually watching the game with even like, let's take aside the cold weather. Let's just put in the fact of rainy games and all the slipping and sliding. I remember a couple years ago, I think it was Justin Fields' rookie or second year, we played the San Francisco 49ers on the opening day, and the 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 field was literally a swimming pool. I mean, we ended up winning that game miraculously, and all the players actually ran down in the end zone and started like swimming in the water in the end zones. That's how bad it was. It's like games like that. It's cool to watch because you don't see them often, but at the same time, it's just not a good product put on TV, and it's not as enjoyable, I would say, from a fan perspective. But outside of that, like I said, it would be super cool to see that stadium built in the suburbs. I think the city's had it long enough. Let's let some of the suburb fans, enjoy having that stadium that close to them and that accessible. So I'm
Yeah,
definitely hoping it ends up in Arlington Heights. And let's get an end to this so this stadium can get built as soon as possible.
yeah, absolutely. And I think too, Arlington Heights is probably a really good location. Not only, you think about when the Chicago Bears were first a team back in 1920, and you looked at the landscape of, the six county area surrounding Chicago. There was nothing out there, right? And now the expansion of people who live, that far out there, you get out to the Huntley area, Elgin, Aurora, all those different suburbs that are out there. That it's in the middle now, right? As before, this downtown area was kind of the nucleus, a pretty much a good center point for that stadium to be for people to travel into. But now, as far out as it goes, I think Arlington Heights is a good midway point between those
I,
who live in the city and those who live, out in the far suburbs.
I was about to say the same thing. Like I perfectly agree. Yes, it probably favors a little bit more in the suburbs people's hands, but at the same time, I think that's a perfect middle ground where when it was in the city, there's no middle ground. The suburb people have to go out there no matter what. It's not in the middle for nobody in the suburbs. And like you said, the train rides, they are fun, but honestly, in my opinion, I just think they get too packed and I'm a little I get a little claustrophobic when there's a bunch of people around me and I just it gets a little too much for me, but I do, the train rides are fun, especially when, with your buddies or, with your family, you're cracking a cold one, having a good time getting to the game. It's always fun. But like you said, you can still, get your cheap beverages, bring them to the tailgate, have a good time with your family and friends. So I'm excited. I definitely hope, it ends up in Arlington Heights and it seems like it's in that direction. And maybe we can end the podcast on this, but if Ben Johnson turns this ship around, I'm all for naming the stadium after him. We can name it the BJ Stadium or something out there because this man, the way he's on track right now, if it's just a continued skyrocket ship going up, I mean, if this season starts and it gets off, under the right way, I mean, I'm all for naming the stadium after him. Let's just give it right to him.
We haven't even played week one yet. You're already naming the stadium after him.
Mm.
I spoken like a true Bears fan you are there. Good job.
Yeah. Well, I'm projecting because the stadium still, even if it gets finalized, it's not going to get built here for another 6 to 8 years. So by that time, Ben Johnson's probably got a couple Super Bowls under his wing down here with the Bears. I'm all for if he turns this thing around, naming that stadium after him. I'm all for it.
If I'm
But
not mistaken, Kevin Warren was part of the Vikings project. And from the moment everything was approved, I think it was a 2.5 year window to have it done.
yeah, but it's a little, I think with the Chicago and the suburbs, it is a little bit of a different. We don't need to get into all the politics of it, but I believe, there's a lot of stuff that still has to get approved and go through before they can even actually put that shovel on the ground. So I'm pretty sure the projections out there right now is still 2030, in between 2030 and 2032. So we got some time before that is actually there, especially the size of the stadium they're going to be building, like we already talked about with, all those NCAA events, bigger events, that people all around the world or country, travel to. But, on that note, with the Ben Johnson, getting named after this stadium, if things go the right way, we'll end it on that note. If you're still here at this point in the podcast, we do appreciate you guys. If you could just drop a like, comment, and subscribe. Who are some players you guys are excited to watch this Sunday against the Bills? And maybe put down a stat line out there for Caleb Williams, what you think he's going to do out there. But that'll be it from us for episode 3. We appreciate you guys, and we'll catch you next week. And as always, bear
Bear
down.
down.